Hello and welcome back. So, here is the guitar. It's all nice and smooth and, you know, ready to go, basically. We're gonna start this video off by painting the guitar. We're gonna make sort of like a sunburst thing going on, and then we're gonna spray paint the sides and lacquer it. So, I hope you enjoy the video. Let's get started, okay? Yay. Okay, so here's the body. I have some stain on the side. You can use whatever kind of stain for this that you want to. I'm using some spirit-based stain, and I'm using a pretty broad brush, and I'm just gonna go along the side of the edge like this. And by doing that, I get an even line across. Because we're gonna make that teardrop shape, we don't really need to care about what it looks like right on the upper horn. And I'm just gonna take this paint and I'm just gonna go back and forth a couple of times and let it naturally bleed out. Something like this. Cover this area now real quick. And I don't care too much about the sides right now because I have plans for that. This is going to get spray painted and we're going to clean this up. We're just going to try to get some coverage. The reason why I like to use Spirit is because it flows out and becomes pretty neat and even without too much trial. So I can just put on a thick layer and it will sort of almost solve itself. Something like that. I'm going to take a piece of paper and I'm going to work this area here a little bit with the paper just because it's a little bit too much. Something like that, looks really nice. And now I have watered down, or in my case spirit downed stain, so it's just weaker. And I'm gonna take some of this and I'm just gonna go across this area again and try to blend it in. As you can see, it's moving across the area and just sort of flooding it with spirit based. And if you want to do this with watercolors, you can definitely do this. You don't have to do it with spirit based just because I'm doing it. You can do it however you want to. Gonna put more and more on and let it flood out. And don't worry if it doesn't look perfect immediately, because we're gonna make it look awesome in a bit. Now I'm taking some paper and I'm just gonna push this around. And I'm going in circles, just trying to blend colors. I'm gonna go back into this original brown and I'm just put some down, and it's gonna lie on top because everything is too wet right now, and I'm just gonna start blending it again, trying to get an edge that disappears, something like that. Just gonna continue working this back and forth for a bit, and I'll be back really soon when I'm at least somewhat close to happy with it. So here's the body now. It's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm gonna do the same thing to the neck. All I did was I did what I showed you, but I went back and forth and I put on color and took it off and went back and forth until I was happy. So just do that. Just keep on applying and removing and going back and forth until you're happy. And eventually you will be happy. So let's do the neck. Okay, so now I'm gonna continue with the neck. And what I'm gonna start off with is that I'm gonna add just some here. I have some paper ready so that I don't soak up too much. Just gonna add some on both sides and try to put down as so that you get some overspill, but not so that it starts dripping, because you don't want it dripping. Then I'm trying to add some up here so that it becomes like a nice curve, something like that. It's a little bit sloppy, but as you already know, we don't need it to be perfect just yet. And then I'm going to take my other blend that is more of a blended out, and I'm going to add that in to do this fade thing. And that's where you really put the work in and try to make it look nice. First we just put down some colors to have something to work with, and then we start blending them in. And hopefully you can see that we're starting to get a nice transition, and then we're going to put down some more on the edge just to darken it up a little bit. I'm going to go back and forth with this until we're happy, just putting on color, wiping it away, putting on color, wiping it away. And up here where the grey meets the natural wood, I'm just going to try to blend in, because we are going to put down some lacquer later on. And I'm going to do the same thing up here. I think I'm going to add some paint, try to blend it out. We also have a scarf joint here, so it will work nicely together. Something like this, I think. Just work it back and forth. Try to create that nice blended feeling. Two colors meeting up. Well, not two colors, but the natural wood and something like that, I think. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing with the headstock. I'm just going to try to add some of the dark brown around the edge and work it in. And then before it dries, I'm just going to apply more to darken it up, trying to put it down evenly as I can without making any really hard lines, because you don't want any hard lines when you're doing, I suppose you could call it a sunburst. And then I'm just going to add in the blended out version, put it down and work it in with the brush, and then take some paper and move the finish around a little bit to something like this. And then I'm going to put down some more. Something like that maybe. And now we're just going to leave it to dry, and I'll be back in a couple of seconds. Okay, so I don't have any sanding sealer at the moment, but that's okay, because you can take some resin, for example, and use as a makeshift sanding sealer. And all I do is I take it and apply it, and I just smear it out like this, and I put the resin down, and I do everything I can to put a nice even thin coat, and just smear it out as neatly as I can, and try to not get any weird bubbles or anything. This is just to cover up. It has nothing to do with how the guitar is going to look later, so don't have to focus too much, but try to make an even and nice job and get as thin a coat as you can possibly get on. That's why I'm using a plastic scraper, because I don't want to scrape the wood, but I also don't want to leave brush strokes or anything like that. Just mix up some epoxy. You can use any kind of epoxy, it doesn't really matter. I mean resin, you can use any kind of resin. You can use epoxy, it's the same thing. Something like that. Okay, so now we just have to wait for the epoxy to dry. And in the meanwhile, here are some nature pictures from the forest close to where I live. So now that the resin on top of the guitar has had a full day to dry, I'm just gonna even it out. I don't know if you can see it, but it has some little marks that needs to go. And so I'm gonna start off by using some 400 grit sandpaper, and it's just to knock off the top. I'm going very lightly. I'm basically just using the weight of my own hand to push down the sandpaper. I don't force it down or anything. I'm just going very lightly like this. Okay, so now that I've gone through it, it's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be at this stage. I'm just knocking off all the tops. The clear coat that is going over is going to even things out. But I'm just going to go over it with some finer grit sandpaper, just to be sure, and I'm just taking off the very top. Since I'm painting the sides and I'm spray painting everything, I'm going to have to put clear coat over it. But if you made a guitar that you were just going to keep all natural, or just have a stained wood or something, you could actually put a thicker coat of resin over it, and then just sand that back and make it perfect, and then polish it up. And you could have a resin finished guitar instead of a lacquered guitar. And that would actually probably be a better finish than lacquer, because lacquer isn't that great of a finish if you're one of those people that wants something that works, that holds up for a very long time and isn't easily damaged. Obviously there are a lot of other finishes you can do. And it's actually, if you're building your first guitar or something like that, the resin finish is maybe the easiest finish you can do. So if you want to, I could, maybe next time I build a guitar, I could show you how to do it, if that's something you think is interesting. You have to leave a comment below though and tell me, because it's not something I usually do when I build a guitar. So now the time has come that I've been waiting for, I hope you've also been waiting for, and that is, I'm going to put some paint down. I'm going to start off with the headstock here, and I've taped it off because I don't want any spill on the side, and I've also taped off the fretboard. All you need to do is basically put tape down where you don't want any paint. Basically, you don't need to see me do that. It's fairly basic and easy. And then all I've done is I've taken something flat and I've burnished down the tape so that it's kind of air sealed. And now I'm going to take my spray paint and I'm just going to go and mist it over. I hope you can see it. And taking light passes and just going back and forth until I have something that looks even. Can look at it from different angles. Something like that. I don't know how well it shows up on the camera, but this is a very dark brown. I think I'm going with a dark brown burst. And then you just leave the color to dry for a couple of minutes, maybe 2 or 3, and then you go over to the body. Okay, so now it's time to do the body. And first, I keep the tape on the neck because I really want the sharp edge when no one can see anything. But I don't tape off the blend part here because I'm going to blend it. I know some people do the whole cover the front of the body and then have like an edge of nothing so that the spray will go over. But I like to freehand it with the spray paint instead. I think that gives me better control. And if you practice on some scrap wood, after like, I don't know, 10 minutes of doing that, you will be good enough at it that you don't really need a weird paper template anyway. So let's see what happens. I apologize if if it's hard to see what I'm doing, but I'm basically using the fact that the paint comes out like cone shape, and I'm using that to do the fade. So if you spray from the right angle, which you will learn by experimenting, you won't have any of those spray paint issues that some people might have. And apologize if it's hard to see what I'm doing, but I have to go somewhat fast with this. Maybe I should invest in a GoPro or something. And I do the side first, and then I'll go and do the back. And I just move the body around, make sure I hit everything from the side. Maybe this is a better angle. I'm going from the back. I don't worry so much about this right now because I'm just going to do an even pass afterwards. But now I'm just lightly trying to... You want as little color on as possible because you don't want to create any runs. And obviously, it goes without saying, I hope, but I'm going to say it anyway. You have to wear a mask. I'm obviously talking to you guys while I'm doing this, but you have to wear a mask when you're doing this, and or be in a very well ventilated area. It's really bad for you to breathe in these chemicals. I have 2 fans, industry fans, running right at the moment, so I'm good. At least I hope I am. Something like this. And now I'm gonna try to just do even coats to color in the back. And I keep about a hand's worth of distance, maybe, somewhere around that. And it's all just to try to create an even... I start spraying here, I stop spraying here. It's kind of hard to show because I want to concentrate on the guitar that I'm actually building. Trying to get an even coat. Something like that. I'll be back in a couple of minutes and doing a new one. Okay, so I want some sunburst around the body as well. So I'll hold it and I'll just go across like this, shooting on the outside. And I just sort of try to move my I don't know if you can see that, but it looks fairly decent. And if you just have patience, it will turn out all right. So, the guitar is painted. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean it off to make sure everything looks nice, and then I'm going to clear coat it. But I'm not going to film that because I'm going to go back and forth taking breaks, and it's going to take about a day to do. Just going like twice every hour, back and forth, putting on a layer. And all I do is basically the same thing. It's just you take the guitar, you move the can back and forth. The only difference is I am gonna coat the entire guitar, the sides, the back, the neck, the front, every part, and also the side here where I have taped it off. Obviously not the front, but you don't need to see that. You've already seen how I painted the whole guitar. And then we'll continue in the next video. So this is going to take about a week, leaving the paint to dry and all of that. And then we are going to continue with the electronics and the hardware and those things. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed these videos. And I'll see you in the next video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. You don't have to if you don't want to. And I'll see you in the next video. Okay? Bye-bye.